Okay, in this video we're going to be finishing up the final two keyframes in the basic walk. We'll go into some fine adjustments of the tail, and the walk should look pretty clean and good after that. So far we have all the contacts, all the passing, and the first recoil and the first high point of the steps of the right step. So what's left is the second recoil and the second high point. So with the scrubber over the R, the second recoil keyframe on the guide layer, I'm going to shift select all of those frames, and using the hotkey F6 create a new keyframe, and I'm going to turn on the onion skin and make sure it's just above the second contact and the second passing, so I can see where I'm coming and where I'm going. And again, this is where all the weight has been transferred onto the right leg. So with everything selected, I'm going to drag that pivot onto the heel and lean it forward, and I'm going to match that foot up with that ghost as best I can. Now holding down shift, I'm going to click the right foot so everything is selected but the right foot, and bring that pivot point on to the ankle and lean her forward. And I'm actually going to adjust it a little bit with the arrow keys so those shapes don't have hard angles really. Maybe you lean forward a little bit. Now holding down shift, I'm going to click the lower right leg. So now everything is selected but the lower right leg and the right foot, and drag the pivot point of the entire body selection onto the knee and lean it forward. So I'm really squashing this leg down, and I might have to do some arrow adjustments just so again there's not any jagged points. And now I'm going to, holding down shift, click the right leg, or the larger part, the thigh of the right leg. So now everything is selected but the right leg, and bring that pivot point onto the center of the hips and line Sally up straight. Alright, that's pretty good. So actually I just want to take a look at what this right leg is doing, so I'm going to make invisible everything but the right leg. And see, that's a little choppy. This is where it's coming. This is from contact to passing. So at some point in this recoil it's going to squish and then stand back up. So let's try and get that a little bit clearer. Actually, let's see what it looks like when we move past it. You know, seeing it move, I'm not quite bothered by it. So we will see what happens when we finish this animation. Make sure that your scrubber is back on recoil when you come back to this, and let's make it all visible again. So in this one, in the recoil, this is where the left foot has left the ground and has started on its progression towards the passing, the high point, and the final contact. So let's get this thing off the ground, and what I want to do is make invisible the lower torso, the tail. I don't want to see that. The mid torso, and that's pretty good. Now I just want to focus on this left leg, so I'm going to turn on the onion skin again, and with just the left leg, actually I'm going to make invisible the right leg too, so I can see this arc. So I definitely want that to be a little bit smoother. Lift it up a little bit. There you go. Holding down Shift, I'm going to click the left thigh, and so everything is selected but the left thigh, and I'm going to do my best to duplicate that pose. So now with just the left foot selected, might have to mess with it with the arrows just so we don't get those jagged points right there. Maybe with just the selection tool so I don't. Okay. That looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. There's not a lot of adjustment with when working on the left leg, since so much of it is blocked out by the body. Okay, let's turn everything back on, and remember we got to adjust these arms. So with the right arm and the right hand, making sure my scrubber is over the recoil, and free transform tool, lean it back a little bit, and with the mid and upper torso and wireframe, I'm going to do the same thing with the left arm. Like so. And now I'm going to grab the whole character, drag that pivot point down to the foot, and squash it down just a little bit. Take it out of wireframe and off the onion skin, and there's some bounce in this step. This is looking really good. So now we got to go to the high point and the final contact, and we'll smooth this thing out. So for the next step, in between the passing and the final contact, I'm going to make a shift selection under high point, and using the hotkey F6 create a new keyframe, and turn on onion skinning, and it's already adjusted. So now I'm going to drag this pivot point onto the toe and bring it forward. Now one thing I am noticing, that this foot on the last contact doesn't line up. Now this is going to be important to make sure that this is believable. So since it's so important, I'm going to select the final keyframe, going back to contact, grab the whole thing, and holding down Shift, I'm going to drag it so it lines up with that high point. This is very important to make sure that the weight is believable. Drag it over to the high point and continue on adjusting. So holding down Shift, I'm going to click the right foot so everything is selected but the right foot, and bring that pivot down to the ankle. And again, this one I'm elongating the leg. This is the highest point in the walk, so this leg needs to be elongated. Holding down Shift and clicking the lower right leg, so now everything is selected but, and drag that pivot point onto the knee and leaner forward, holding down shift, clicking the larger part of the right leg. So now everything is selected but that. Drag it onto the torso, and now I'm going to rock her back. That's pretty good. That's a pretty high step. Alright, and now I'm going to make everything invisible but the left leg. And let's select it all. Make the pivot point. And this is the step we're trying to look. So there's a huge gap right here, and that's what makes that movement pop, when there's a huge gap and then a joint happens, and so it looks as if there's a popping going on. So we're going to bring it forward and smooth out that movement. So this is the arc that we really want to focus on, where these pivots are. Something like that. And actually, after I rotate it, it might be a little bit different. So holding down or using the arrow keys, I'm going to adjust it a little bit. Just remember, I want to keep this pivot point in a nice arc. And the benefit of working in this way, where we just have one part highlighted after the bulk of the animating is done, you can really fine-tune this animation so it's pretty smooth. So now I'm going to hold down shift and select the larger part of this leg, so everything is selected but, and actually use the arrow key a little bit and bring that lower leg down a little bit and rotate it back. So we want to insinuate that the toes are coming up here. Trying to make this. Now it's just leg, or the foot selected. I moved it to selection tool by hitting V, so I didn't have to see the bounding box. So that's a lot more. That's the progression. That's the progression of just the left foot. Looks kind of silly all by itself, but let's go back and see. Okay, so this high point, this right arm is jutted forward, so let's do that. Right arm, make sure that my scrubber is over the H. Using free transform tool, bring that forward, and that left arm, even though we're not going to see it, should be on its way back. So let's put make these invisible and put the upper torso and the mid torso on wireframe, and select the right arm, right hand, and bring it back. Alright, last thing I want to do is select the whole thing, and just like we did for the recoil and the last high point, I want to stretch it up just a touch to give it some loft. Alright, sorry about that. Let's take it off onion skin and click wireframe twice. So now all these keyframes are done. We should have a pretty bouncy looking walk, and there's no floating going on. Those feet, when they're planted, they stay planted until the next step. This is great. I'm going to save, of course, and if I hold hold down Command and return or Control and return, I create a exported Flash video called a SWF, and so I can see this walk cycle that we just created. In the next video, I'm going to talk about a little bit of fine-tuning adjustments for each one of these steps and bringing it in to a close by making it a looping walk cycle, a stationary walk cycle. So that's what we'll do next.